All right, well, we do have a flood of folks still coming in, so I might give us at least one more minute. We do have a lot of information to tackle today. And again, I appreciate folks taking time to be here today. This is Reporting Income Part 1. We're going to be doing a 2 learning series for income at least this month, and then hopefully more later in the year as we tackle some of our more difficult topics. When it comes to income information, this is part of our CPOP Redetermination Learning Series. Today's April 4th. We're going to be recording, so we'll get that started here in just a sec, and I'll give us just a few seconds. If folks are having any issues during the training or any issues with audio, please let us know. We'll try our best to support you. This will be recorded, so if you do end up having any tech issues, don't worry, we'll make sure to share the presentation out to you all soon. Okay. This is great, guys, right? 152 folks so far, which is really great. Awesome. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, as I mentioned, we're recording this session today. This is our short 1-hour Reporting Income Part 1 learning series, or Redetermination learning series. Today's April 4th. And let me get in and introduce the folks that are going to be speaking today. So I will be training, this is Sean Snyder, Regional Outreach Coordinator with the Metro Region, Multnomah and Clackamas County. And I'm here with my coworker, Rosie. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. My name is Rosa Armenta. I am also a Regional Outreach Coordinator for the Northeast region. And I am very happy to be here, talk about income, and looking forward to your questions.
Thank
Sean.
And we do have some fantastic subject matter experts from our policy team. I do want to let you know, we're going to go over a little bit of GoToWebinar tips and tricks. I see folks already using the questions box. These fantastic folks that are here today are going to do the best they can to help triage and answer questions that we're able to today. We do have a very short session today, so hopefully we'll have time for Q&A. If we don't, we'll do a follow-up as well, but I'm gonna hand it off and let folks introduce themselves. Janelle, why don't you go first?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Janelle White. I'm with Aging and People with Disabilities. I'm an analyst on the Medicaid Program Eligibility Policy Unit.
Wonderful. Thanks, Janelle. Adonal, why don't you go next?
Hey there, my name is Adonal Arrington. I'm a policy analyst here on the Magi Medicaid Eligibility Policy Team.
Yay, and then Christy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christy Taylor. I'm also a Magi Medical Eligibility Policy Analyst. I work with Adonal.
Yay, thank you guys. And you're was helpful as well as Christy in doing some of this preparation for this work. If you can, she will hopefully join us later today, but she did have a conflicting meeting. All right, we'll go ahead and move forward. So for today, as I said, we're going to go over GoToWebinar tips. We're going to go high-level redetermination renewals process, which we know has started this month. Some new and returning medical policy starting this month. And then we're going to do a high-level overview of earned income, annual income, how to help community members enter that information as accurately as possible, responding to income RFIs, questions answered if we have time, and then we have information on past and upcoming webinars as well. With GoToWebinar, for folks that may be unfamiliar, you are going to see a little orange arrow or red arrow, however it appears on your end. If you click on that arrow, it will pop open the side panel. That will give you an opportunity to take a look at the 2 handouts that we have uploaded. There is a public health emergency unwinding timeline document that we'll talk about in a second. Super helpful for viewing kind of what the redetermination process will be looking like, as well as the slide deck that we are going to be going over today. So if you want to download it, take notes, have that with you, feel free to do that. And remember, if you have questions, please ask them as we're going through. We may not have time to answer those questions right in the moment, but we will follow up with a Q&A as well as try and answer some doing a Q&A session if we have time today. All right. For folks, GMS, if you're unable to see them, you'll see a, let me go back here, a little tab here that says handouts. If you don't see them, don't worry, we will follow up and send things out and post the recording as well. So I apologize if you're unable to see them, but it will say handouts and then questions. If you click the drop down, it should say have 2 handouts there. Okay, hopefully you can see those. Okay, so high level redeterminations overview. Again, this is mostly a training about income, so I want to go quickly, but part of the reason why we're having this discussion is because of our big redetermination renewal process that's happening starting this month. As we know, throughout the public health emergency, because of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, we were able to allow individuals to stay on the Oregon Health Plan during the public health emergency, even if they may have been ineligible under normal circumstances. So folks that may have been eligible over the income limit, they had changes in their household, or various other situations. Starting April 1, as requested by the federal government, all states are starting to do redeterminations as we begin to exit that public health emergency period for kind of continuous eligibility for Oregon Health Plan. As you guys know, starting April 1, we'll be working on doing renewals and redeterminations for 1.4 million individuals. That's, I think, 1 in every 3 Oregonians over the next 14 months. So it's going to be a lot of work. We really depend on you guys. I appreciate you taking the time to be here to get a refresher on income and some of the new changes that are going to be happening. Just as a quick reminder, so this timeline for renewals is part of that interactive tool that is in the handouts. I'll send it as a follow-up as well. But this gives a really nice overview of what is the redetermination timeframe and period going to look like for each group once they go into renewal mode. So as we've discussed previously in other sessions, our hope and goal is to roughly do redeterminations for about 10% of OHB members. Their renewal process will start every month. So April, in the next couple of weeks, letters will go out, that first 10%, for everyone when they start their renewal timeframe. It will be, they'll have 90 days to respond. So we can look at the first group here from April to July, has 90 days to respond if they have a renewal that they need to respond to or requested for to provide more information. If they don't respond to that renewal, they will still will move towards potential closure of benefits, but they will still receive 60 more days of benefits before their benefits close due to non-response. Of course, if they're found ineligible and they do respond to that renewal, the timeframes will be roughly the same, but depending on when they respond to that renewal. But even for folks that haven't responded to the renewal and closed benefits, they will still have another 90-day reconsideration period where they can work with you as a community partner, call in to the 1-800 phone line and work with an eligibility worker, work with you to reopen those benefits if they're still eligible before having to resubmit a new application. So my goal to show this is that I know this is going to be tough, it's going to be a lot of work, but we are working as hard as possible to support you all and to give our community members as much time as possible to respond to information and kind of get back into that flow of the renewal timeframes. Even though they've always been needing to respond to renewals, we know that some folks may have gotten out of practice with that. Okay. And I did see the question about us being able to provide that timeline in Spanish. I'm hoping that we do have that, so we'll make sure to look for that, Susan, and try and get it to you or attach it as a follow-up for folks that attended today. Great question. For section 2, we're going to look at new and returning policies starting April 1. As you guys may know, some of this may be recurring information or new. We will be resuming medical benefit closures due to folks that are found to be over the income limit or over resource limits. For folks that had due to lack of a non-response to a request for information, they may close benefits. A non-response to renewals, as well as if an individual has a dependent child that is not receiving minimum essential coverage, are all reasons why we will kind of move back towards ending medical benefits. Another thing that is returning for folks that have been assisters before the public health emergency, and this will be similar to how things were previously for folks that are new. This may be new as well. So income verification may be required when the one applicant portal cannot verify income using electronic sources. So during the public health emergency, we had put requests for information for income on pause, and that is going to be starting again in April 1. So that's why we're really spending this time to go over income, make sure you feel comfortable with entering income into the system, and then what kind of information are we looking for if a RFI is generated. Really important nuance and change to the way we did things before the public health emergency is that these income RFIs are going to be considered soft pens. So that means that applicants may still receive benefits prior to us verifying their income information if the income information indicates that they may be eligible. So we're trying, as we're moving back into this new normal, create as many leniencies and supports to communities and reduce as many barriers as possible. And I do see some questions coming in, so hopefully we're able to capture those. And if we're not able to in the moment, we'll make sure to follow up with those as well. In order to start us off with our refresher on reporting income, I'm going to hand things off to my colleague, Rosie.
Hey, thank you, Sean, for that brief redetermination overview. It was great. So we want to do an income refresher in preparation for the upcoming changes. So those income RFIs that Sean was just talking to us about, as well as the redetermination and of course the renewal process. And we want you to feel confident in helping applicants and OHP members with entering their income accurately on the one applicant portal. We will have part 2 on reporting income on April 26th. So we are looking forward to having you join. So if we can go to the next slide, Sean. So here, there are several medical programs that the One system considers when determining eligibility for an individual. Now, these programs have their own rules about which income is countable and who it is countable for. For example, some of these factors include relationship, the tax filing status, the age of individuals in the eligibility group, and when entering income, we must use the gross amount instead of the net amount. It is essential for you as a community partner to be able to differentiate those two, which is the gross and the net amount. And we can go to the next slide. It's going to have a beautiful infographic with what is the gross pay against the net pay. So the gross pay is what an employee earns before taxes. Benefits and other payroll deductions are withheld from their wages. And then we have the net pay, which is their take-home pay. And this is the amount remaining after all withholdings are counted for. Again, when entering income in the One Applicant portal, we must use the gross amount and not the net amount. So let's take a look at tips when gathering information on income. So we want to have a solid conversation with the applicant, the member, about their income before or even during the application process that will prepare you to enter their income correctly. Some of the questions we have on here that could lead that conversation are you currently working? Did you bring proof of your income? How often are you paid? Is your income consistent or does it vary? Because some individuals may have fluctuating income due to those rotating schedules or even unpredictable earnings. So for example, if you're working with pay stubs, we need to look at the minimum and maximum hours and ask the member, hey, so this pay stubs show you're working between 15 to 20 hours. Is that about what you work each paycheck? And then depending on that answer, what you can do is you can take the average hours and times that by the rate of pay. And again, the same question could be asked using the gross amount and then taking the average of those amounts. And we can also ask if they have had other jobs this year, as also this will assist you as a community partner with helping the member estimate their annual income. And we're going to be talking about that annual income here coming up with Sean. So if we can go to the next section, Sean. Okay, so we are focusing on earned income for this section. Now, earned income is from a job or an employer. We also have a list of other categories on the screen that are considered earned income. So when an applicant reports wages, usually in the form of a paycheck, it may include tips and commissions. We know that one uses monthly income amounts to, well, determine the applicant's eligibility. However, if the applicants are paid more often than monthly, so you're gonna see like applicants getting paid weekly, twice a month, bi-weekly, it's important to remember that you don't try to manually calculate their income amount, and instead we will be coding the gross amount paid for each pay period. Now, we will go over earned income examples, but before we do that, we want to go ahead and spend some time on the importance on the pay frequency. So I think, yeah, so the pay frequency. So we want to make sure to pay close attention to the question of how often is the individual paid? So there's going to be a drop-down menu that will provide you with pay frequencies of daily, weekly, so on and so forth. Let's do a dive on the two pay frequencies most often confused, which is the bi-weekly and twice a month. So the bi-weekly, every other week, so the member is going to get paid every other week, typically on the same day each time, for example, every other Friday, every other Monday, and some months have 3 paychecks, right? So now we have twice a month, and those individuals are sometimes going to get more than 2 weeks in a pay period, typically on the 1st or the 15th of each month, or the 5th and the 20th of the month. And each month has only 2 paychecks compared to bi-weekly, and some other months have 3 paychecks, right? So we will go more into detail on how to calculate pay frequency and how to code income on the next section that Sean will be presenting up next.
Awesome. Thanks, Rosie. So guys, we wanted to, and I see some really, really great questions coming through the chat. We are going to be covering specifically our goal for our next section for income is to cover self-employment. So for folks that have questions about self-employment, please come to the training on the 26th and sign up for that one as well. We'll have the links below. We are really going to be focusing on just kind of earned income wages today, just to have that intro to income, and because there's enough confusion and sometimes difficulties with folks that have fluctuating income. So our kind of goal is to focus on that for today. So we're going to just have a quick example of Olivia Lucas that works at Wilco, and she's paid every other week. We're chatting with her and finding more information about what kind of benefits she has, and the benefits, her income, letting us know that her amount that she gets paid on every check is never the same, and that her shift changes regularly. So there are different ways when you're working with a community member to help them apply for benefits that you can ask different questions, as we talked about earlier, asking what's your pay rate, how many hours you usually work per week or per pay period, do you know if those hours change each week, and help community members have that conversation about what their income is. The example we're going to show today does have, is an example of Olivia was able to bring pay stubs for us. And so we have 3 consecutive pay stubs that we can look at together. But we recognize that in a lot of situations, community members might not bring those pay stubs. So we'll try and talk through this on what are different ways to use tools and use questions as a way to help get to the answer when it comes to income for a community member. So for this example, Olivia brought us 3 pay stubs. So works at Wilco. She's paid on, looks like on Fridays, so the 17th. She is paid at a consistent rate of $15 an hour. This for first paycheck, she worked 45 hours. On this next paycheck, she was paid on the 3rd, rate of $15. She worked 60 hours. And then the 3rd paycheck, she worked again 45 hours. So she has quite a bit of range here. She goes from 45 to 60 to 45. So when we have community members have fluctuating income, we want to help them to figure out an average, the best average of their income to put into the applicant portal, since we can really only put one pay period amount into the application. Some of you folks may be very familiar with doing averages or helping folks do these calculations. But one of the things it's going to ask us is how, what is Olivia's pay frequency? So if she's being paid, it looks like every other week, the 17th, the 3rd, and the 17th. So it'd be every other week. Do you guys know, is she bi-weekly or twice a month? And I'll wait for folks to put maybe some things in the chat. Bi-weekly. Yay! Okay, I'm seeing lots of bi-weeklies. Great. So and I hopefully this isn't too oversimplified, guys, but it's just think about how we can use our different tools. If we didn't have pay stubs, we would just ask her, are you paid every other Friday? And do the best we can. Say, hey, Olivia, do you get paid 3 paychecks sometimes? Or is it always 2? Are you always paid on the same days? Just help to gather that information. So for this particular example, so we've got Olivia, it's helpful. She has a consistent rate of pay, but her hours vary. So with the 3 pay stubs, again, we and this is a conversation we've had with our policy team and everybody's as well, as like, we want to help them get to the right, as accurate as possible for their income. Help folks if you can get there. So we just did a little bit of a math example of a way that you could do it. There's lots of ways you can approach it. But for us, we did, the hours that you worked across the 3 pay stubs, 45 plus 60 plus 45, 150 hours over those 3 pay periods, divide by 3. She has an average of 50 hours per pay period. She, as we had mentioned, is paid $15 an hour. So $15 an hour times 50. She roughly, an average income for her gross income is $750 per pay period. And that is how we can help a client get to that answer and help them into that information when we go to do the application. And I am realizing that my system is being a little weird, so I apologize, guys. Are you able to see? I'm not sure what happened there. Oh, why is it doing that? Okay, I need to fix something on my end. Okay, perfect. So this is how we would enter that information into the One Applicant portal. Every month, it will be 3 paychecks. That's a great question. So Amina, for folks that are biweekly, there are usually 26 pay periods throughout the year versus 24. So usually 2 times a year, that client might receive 3 pay stubs versus just 2. So it's just another way to help figure out if that person is biweekly versus twice a month. Okay, so for income, you have wages. Income type is wages. Employer name is Wilco. We help to calculate her average hours. And this is also so that our folks on the back end that are helping with the application and any follow-up information know how did we come to this determination. So we averaged out our income at 50 hours per pay period, paid biweekly, and we found out that she was paid every Friday, and the $750 is the amount that she's paid each pay period. Okay. And again, I know that this is one example of a myriad, lots of different ways that folks have complex income or multiple types of income, but this is just one example of how we can have that conversation and work someone through that process. We're going to have a similar conversation between Rosie and I for annual income as well. It's going to ask if Olivia started her employment prior. So this is if we were doing the application right now in April. If she started her employment prior to January 1, so that indication is yes. For her, we asked her about that. Olivia's temporarily away from work. No, she's currently still working. And has this employment ended yet? No. So all of these questions are trying to help us gather information on what does our income information look like now? What will it look like in the future? And we can have those discussions and conversations as well. Sorry, guys, I'm not sure why it's doing that. I'll have to go back and fix that. Okay, for the income summary, this is how it's going to show up. So it's going to show wages, Wilco, Olivia Lucas, and that we put down $750 biweekly. Now, it's really important, you guys may, $750 biweekly. I apologize if I just said weekly. That's per pay period. And the system will do a monthly calculation on its own in the back end. So what you guys is really helpful for you to be able to do is write down the income amounts, the frequencies, for you to help do the annual income calculation later in the application. So please remember, it's not going to do the math for you. It's not going to automatically put in an annual amount, and it's not going to automatically do a monthly amount for you right now, the way this system is designed. So key takeaways when having that conversation with someone is we recognize that folks' situations change. We want to help them put in as accurate information as possible, help ask questions in order to get to that answer of where their income is at. You know, if they have pay stubs, fantastic. If they don't have pay stubs, we don't want to be turning people away because they didn't necessarily have a physical representation of what their income is. Work with them, help them calculate that information or ask those extra questions in order to get to an answer. If a request for information is asked at a later time, you can follow up with more information. We'll talk about what RFIs you could submit. But we don't want to make sure we're not turning people away, especially with income being a soft depend. We want to help them answer that as accurately as possible and move forward in the application. And I see really.
Hey, Sean, looks like there's a lot of questions about that $750 amount that you went through on that example.
Sure. What questions?
So it looks like it says, there's a question that says 750 is for a month with 3 paychecks. If 2 paychecks in month, again, will it be 750? Another person says the 750 shown in income amount is always the monthly income, question mark?
It's always okay. So the way that the system is going to calculate it is it's just going to show you a summary page of how you entered the income information into the One Applicant portal. So if the person you're working with has a weekly payment and you calculate an average weekly amount, this summary page is going to show you the amount that you entered for the weekly amount and the frequency, and it will tell you that. So it's going to change depending on the situation. And you're right. For the example with 3 pay stubs, if you were only to use 2 pay stubs, I think with our example, it may work out to be the same amount and may work out to be a little bit different. So, and again, we recognize that things are not going to be 100% perfect. So, I mean, when I was an OHP application assister, I used as many pay stubs as possible and asked clients to bring as many as they had access to, and that maybe seem a little unreasonable for some folks' situations, but the more accurate we can help them with entering that correct average income, the better. If they only have 2 pay stubs, I would move forward with that. If you feel like you don't have enough information or they need to go back and I used to help people, help them log into, or they log into their payment portal and we look at pay stubs that way. So there's lots of different ways to approach it. But as you're recognizing is that depending on the information that you get from the client, it may change that average a little bit. But just do the best you can. Oh, and Chris, you have anything you want to add to that?
May I add just one thing too? What we generally try to advise is use representative pay stubs. So if they have a pay stub that was extraordinarily high because they worked a bunch of extra overtime or something, and that's not representative of what their average normal is, we wouldn't generally use that in our average calculation. Similarly, if they took some unpaid time off and they had a really low check, that if that's not representative of their ongoing income or what they expect to continue to happen, we wouldn't include that pay stub, for instance, in our average calculation either. So we really want to look at representative pay stubs.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that. So yeah, definitely that's something that we've talked about even in our certified sister, as well as like if a client has pay stubs and there's outliers and showing really high income, that's not normal for what they're going to be doing moving forward. Do your best to use the information that they have to enter in the information on what is their current income and moving forward. Does that help folks a little bit? Again, I know this is a beginning of a conversation. There's going to be lots of questions. Income is always a tough topic. And I know Clara's asking again about the One Applicant portal. I'm fairly sure it does not calculate a monthly amount for you as an assister. It will calculate it on the back end when it runs determination for the individual and for the households that income applies to.
Hey, Sean, this is Rosie. So I think there was a lot of questions around this screen in general, thinking that the 750 was monthly. And we want to make sure that we're paying attention to the frequency because we're just coding the biweekly. And like Sean mentioned, it's not going to do the monthly calculation for you.
I know you're asking about whether we can do the monthly amount. I'm not going to go into that, at least right now, just because it's going to involve a little bit of conversion because it's biweekly. So we don't quite have time to go into that at this moment. It's more about helping the client enter the income accurately into the One Applicant Portal, letting the One Applicant Portal do what it does best, which is the math on the back end. So we just don't quite have time to go into those details. And I'm going to move forward, guys, just because we do have a lot to get through in a very short time frame. We will follow up as best we can with the questions you guys are asking. I apologize, I can't get through everything. So as you all know, for folks that have done many applications with the One Applicant Portal, I'm skipping over some sections. We're going to be covering deductions and expenses with the self-employment discussion later this month. But the one big thing we really wanted to talk about is after helping someone enter their income for the pay periods and they're helping to enter the information for their monthly amounts, the next biggest piece where you really need to help clients or can support clients is entering their annual income amount. Because if someone is found ineligible for their monthly amount, they may be found eligible with what we call the annual income test, or when we're looking at their annual income. Okay. So I'm going to go over a little bit of a background on why the annual income test exists, why we ask for annual income, and why is it the way that it is. So with the Oregon Health Insurance Marketplace, there is folks that may be found eligible for what are called advanced premium tax credits or financial assistance. Marketplace is a little bit different from OHP. OHP, we're looking at, in many cases, monthly income. Marketplace will look at annual income. So prior to us adding the annual income information, we sometimes would have folks that were found ineligible for OHP because their monthly amount was over the income limit. But when they were referred to Marketplace, were found ineligible for financial assistance on Marketplace because their annual income was below the Marketplace's threshold, which is 100% FPL, 100% at the federal poverty level. So we have the annual income test to help with that assessment on whether someone may be eligible for Medicaid based on their annual income, to prevent folks from bouncing back and forth between the Marketplace and OHP Medicaid benefits. The reason why I want to make sure that we have a good understanding that this is designed around federal rules with Marketplace is because there are some nuances to the annual income test that we may not have been super clear about before that I wanted to try and cover today. Before I move on, Policy, is there anything that you want to add at all to make sure I tackled that well? And if not, that's totally fine. Okay, all right, I'll go ahead.
I've got nothing to add, Sean.
Okay, awesome, thanks, Adonal. Okay, so there are some pieces and nuances to that annual income test that I want us to go over. So income that is used for that calculation is looking at the full calendar year. So say we're doing an application for Olivia, and we'll do a little example with her in April. That means that 3 months prior, she could have had another job, or she may later down the road this year know that she's going to be stopping work or switching to a new job. So we want to help folks get a full picture of their year income for 2023 as best as possible. So I want to make sure we ask clients about any other income they've had, any other jobs they've had that year, any other income in the household that may not be active right now. The annual income test includes all taxable income and considers all allowable taxable deductions, similar to what we enter information for the monthly amounts. Annual income test, it will only apply to people who file taxes. Now, if folks indicate on their application that they're filing taxes, that that is how the system will check them for their annual income. If they are not filing taxes or indicate on their application they're not filing taxes, they will not be run through the annual income test, and that is because filing taxes is a federal requirement to receive financial assistance on the marketplace. Similarly, if someone is married filing separately, they would be ineligible for tax credits or financial assistance on the marketplace, and therefore would not be eligible for the annual income test through the One Applicant portal as well. Okay, as we have probably seen with some of our community members that have either seasonal work or temporary work, students that maybe only work through the summer but are not working for the majority of the year, may be found eligible with the annual income test. So it's just helpful to know what criteria is around that annual income test if folks decide to change how they're doing things as well. Okay, and then last caveat, as you guys may have noticed, depending on when a client applies for benefits, the One Applicant portal will sometimes ask for last year's annual income or next year's annual income, and that is in preparation of gathering information for if someone needs retro benefits, as well as for future benefits if they're eligible for Marketplace to help collect that information as well. And absolutely, Maggie, there will be a recording available for this webinar. I know I'm probably moving really quickly, so please do. And if folks have questions, follow up with your rocks, check in with me too. I'm here to support, and I know we have a short time frame to get through. Okay, so this is just a reminder of what the annual income and deductions page will look like. It's only part of it. It has sections for your earned income, which for Olivia's example, we had earned income, so we're gonna add some amounts to there. Also, we'll ask for Social Security benefits if that's eligible for that individual. Remember not to include supplemental security income in that section. And unearned income, any taxable income received that is not earned or from Social Security Administration. So we'll tackle that hopefully in a later training as well. Just to try and simplify our discussion a little bit today, we're just going to focus on earned income and Olivia's example. Okay. All right, guys. So I was going to go through a little bit of a kind of conversation on how to help someone enter their annual income, because I know that this is a really difficult part. I know when I was an OHB application assister, a lot of clients would tell me, I just have no idea what my annual income is. And so just as just an example of how to have that conversation and help folks get to that answer. So Rosie, would you be willing to be my Olivia for our example today?
Of course.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. So we can ask questions like, hey, Olivia, have you been working at Wilco for this whole year?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Are you expecting to work at Wilco for the remainder of the year?
I hope so, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see, what else will help us? Can you tell us about, have you had any other jobs this year in 2023?
I've only worked at Wilco.
Okay, perfect. Do you have any idea of roughly how much you might make this year?
I'm unsure. Can you help me?
Okay, perfect. So those first questions are just an idea of how you can help figure out, have they had any other income in the past that we need to be accounting for? Do they expect to be working there? Will their income stay roughly the same? Are they expecting to have any other jobs? Do they have an idea of how much they might be making? So that just helps to kind of frame and get folks to have that conversation about annual income. So one way we can approach is we could say, we calculated your average gross income as $750 per pay period. If you remember when we did your monthly income, that is roughly about $1,500 for the month that we were looking at. Does that sound about right for you monthly?
It sounds about right.
Okay, great. So if we were to look at $1,500 a month, another thing, Olivia, if you're able to help us, do you expect to have any holiday pay or overtime that you know of that may be coming up, or it tends to come up for you annually?
No.
Okay, so trying to, as best we can, accommodate for any other fluctuations. And we're like, okay, great, awesome. So if we were to take that $1,500 a month and multiply by 12 for the whole year, that gives us around $1,800 estimated gross annual income. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Fantastic. So, and again, guys, I know that this is an oversimplification in many cases, but this is just to help us practice what does it look like to help ask those questions, recognizing that this is a snapshot in time. We want to do the best we can to help collect that annual income information, but do our best we can to help them, and remembering that there will want to always remind them to come back to report changes if things change in the future, and we can adjust that both that monthly income and annual income. So for that Olivia example, we would put earned income expected for 2023 is $18,000. For her example, she didn't have any other income. Okay. I know. And I know that Olivia is bi-weekly, which I know that she has the 26 pay periods. Christy or Donald, do we want to tackle why we wanted to do the math the way that we did it versus multiplying by 750 by 26 pay periods? And if not, that's fine.
No, I'm not able to respond to that specific reasoning behind that guidance. Sorry, Sean.
No worries at all. That's okay. And that was for Teresa's question. It's true. There's lots of ways to calculate annual income. The thing that I think our team was looking at is that if you take that $750 average and multiply 20 by 26, it sometimes can create a small overestimate of Olivia's annual income. And so we went with more of the monthly amount versus that the 3 pay periods. But I can follow up and see if we can have a little bit of a deeper discussion about doing that annual income for someone that's bi-weekly, because it'll be a similar conversation around weekly amounts as well. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else. If not, I can always follow up with that one.
I can maybe add just what we had talked in preparation for this offline, but the thinking of, so annual income is hard to anticipate, right? Because usually the rest of the year hasn't happened yet. And especially in a scenario like this where income varies every week, what we're trying to do is estimate as closely as possible what they anticipate getting. And it's not a precise science, it is our best estimate. And when we start getting into complicated math, we're trying to avoid you having to do that. If you're able and it makes sense and the client, the applicant agrees, and then please go ahead. If that is how you can get to the most accurate anticipated annual amount. Excuse me. I think we use this example as more simplified when it's unknown, and we don't necessarily at the end of the year, like I guess at the end of the day, when we make a determination, if they're not going to qualify based on the monthly amount, and they're going to be evaluated against an annual income amount, our system will try to verify that. So if we can verify it based on the amount that's entered, great. If we can't, we're going to send a request for information for more verification anyway. So it is in the client's best interest, to make sure that we're anticipating as accurately as possible, but perhaps not over anticipating if we don't know otherwise.
Awesome, Christy. I really, really appreciate it. And this is why, guys, we wanted to make sure to have this discussion, is because this is not easy, and there are many ways to approach the same case and same situation. So we can talk a little bit more offline, but our sisters have lots of different backgrounds. We just want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable in approaching some of these topics. And again, we can talk more about it another time as well, but I need to move us forward. And I knew that was going to be a spot that would hang folks up for those that are aware of the systems conversion, and the 26 pay period versus 24. So we can always have another discussion about it later on as well. All right, let's keep moving. Okay, so for key takeaways, annual income test is going to be looking at 100% FPL. The annual income test can only be used for folks that file taxes and married filing jointly versus married filing separately. We want to make sure when we're working with a client to help them enter their annual income, that income calculation, we want to look at the full year and help them do their best estimate. Okay. I know some of that may bring up more questions than not, so we will be able to answer them as well. But I'm going to pass things off to Rosie, who's going to talk to us about responding to income RFIs now that those are going to be starting again. Go for it, Rosie.
Yeah, it would help if I would to unmute myself. So thank you, Sean. Let's spend some time responding to income RFIs. So if we can go to the next section.
Rosie, just as a time check too, we're at 13 minutes out before noon, so just a heads up.
Sounds great. All right. So again, a request for information will generate when an applicant or a member has missing information that needs to be provided, that needs to provide additional documentation. So here's an example of a request for information. So the screen will show the applicant's program that they're applying for, the type of information for the RFI, and the name of the person the RFI has been generated for. And this is very important. I'm going a little bit fast because we're running low. We're running fast on time. So it will give you a date the information is needed by. Now, as a community partner, you can assist applicants, members in extending this date of request for information. So if, let's say there's a hardship in getting verification documentation and the applicant member is needing more time to provide this information, you must make this request for this extension prior to the due date. Now, if we're submitting an initial application, what I do want to say on here is, if we're working with the initial application, we want to ensure that we are not uploading any other documentation with the initial application. Okay, so once a request for information is generated through the applicant portal, we want to go back to that member's case and click on the upload button to upload the verification documentation if it's readily available to upload. So on the next slide, we have been assisting Olivia Lucas with reporting earned income wages. So if you can go to the next slide, Sean.
Do you mind if I clarify something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
It just our biggest takeaway is that with the new system and the way things are going to be verifying income, you may see a reduction or fewer RFIs or requests for information for income. So in interest of reducing follow-up work for eligibility workers and processing center as well, only upload income information if it is requested. So if an RFI is generated, then go ahead and upload it, but don't do it preemptively, just to make sure that we are minimizing the amount of extra work that we need to be doing for an application. Okay, that was the only extra piece I want to add. Thanks, Rosie.
Great addition, Sean. Thank you. As I mentioned, we have been working and assisting Olivia Lucas with reporting earned income wages, and well, she has fluctuating work hours. So an RFI has been generated, as we saw in the previous screen. So this is a written statement example of what an applicant can submit along with pay stubs that could help clear that request for information. So it's important to have the applicant's name, any discrepancy, fluctuation on work hours, the employer, a signature, and a good working phone number should we need to contact the applicant for additional questions. Now we have provided you with more income written statement examples from applicants, members, and from employers. These are going to be located towards the end of the slide deck, and due to the time, we won't have any time to go over them, but we encourage you to take a look at them, especially the employer verification one too. It's a really good one to have on hand as a tool. And again, so my next slide, so the final takeaways. We want to get as accurate information as possible when coding the applicant and members' income and estimating their annual income, right? We want to encourage you to ask open-ended questions to help applicants figure out their income. We don't want to create barriers or turn people away for not having pay stubs, or maybe they don't have any income verification. We want to have that organic conversation with them, you know, apply those open-ended questions to know and learn more about their earned income. And as Sean mentioned, we want to ensure that we're not uploading any other documentation with the initial application. Only once the system generates an RFI for that person, then you're able to go back into that member's case and upload any additional information that's being requested or generated by the RFI. you can just click on the upload button and upload the verification if it's readily available. Then, and if not, if the member needs to come back, then you would just go back to the member's case file when they do come back with the requested information and upload them at that time. And so those are the final key takeaways. Sean, I know we have a Q&A question, so it's 11:52, so we can go ahead and do that Q&A and see how many questions we can definitely answer in the meantime.
Awesome, Rosie. And one thing I was going to do quick before we come back, just in case folks do have to hop off, because I know some folks said that they might be willing to stay longer. I'm not sure for subject matter experts. I know we're going to be going into lunch, but just as a follow-up in the slides, we do have provided the recordings for all of our past trainings. So responding to RFIs, Magi Expanded Adult Program, as well as the PHE Unwinding recordings as well are there and available for you. And upcoming trainings for you to be aware of. Please register for them. Again, I know this is like, we couldn't make the training longer. It needed to be more than an hour for us to dive into income. So we're going to be doing more trainings on income coming up this next month, later this month, and then hopefully later on in the year as well. And our goals is to help create better resources for you guys to have available for income as well. Okay, so for a Q&A session, I know I just saw a question there that Christy brought up. So are you saying we no longer have to upload the consent form? So Christy, great question. So what we were talking about specifically in the RFI section, when completing an application, I know you guys may be aware that there may be a miscellaneous document upload section that might appear when you're doing a brand new application. If you're doing it virtually, you must always, if the client is not present with you, must always submit a consent form, whether it's by secure email through oregon.benefits.odhsoha.oregon.gov or upload it via the application. The thing that we were talking about was specifically, let's not upload information for income unless the system pens for a request for information. Does that help? And then, yes, you guys will have access to this recording as we have done for other sessions as well. They will probably take us a few days. I have to send it off to somebody else to get it converted to a YouTube link. Will there be RFI? Oh, and then the folks were asking if you can use the awesome template that Rosie put together as an example of a written statement. Absolutely, as long as it fits that client situation. Again, our biggest takeaways are like, employer, the date it's written, indicate who the client is for, what the company's for, and what is the reason for the extra information. Say there's a really outlier pay stub and you want to help explain that. Honestly, if a request for information is created, supplying more information than less is really helpful for us to understand what was that conversation you were having with that client. So written statements are wonderful to send along with other documentation to help eligibility workers. Okay, no worries. I see a couple of folks are having issues downloading slides. We will make sure to get these sent to all the folks that applied today. Yes, Alexandria, great question. We have gotten approval from the policy team to be able to continue doing remote consent and remote signatures past the PHE. That will become part of our process and able to help people both in person and virtually. Great question. We'll have more on that too. Okay, is there anything, guys, in regards to the income pieces, Donald or Christy or folks that I feel like we want to capture? If we don't, that's totally fine. We will follow up with any concerns or questions that folks had that we couldn't answer today during the session.
Can't think of anything.
Okay. And you guys have asked really good questions. I know that this is, income is complex. We understand that. And that's why we want to make sure to continue to help you guys with that process. Oh, this is a great question, actually, Christy. I know that you guys are working on, or like Christy Garland had said we were working on things internally, but when it comes to, if someone does have pay stubs, do they have to be the most recent, or what's kind of the hope for policy when we're looking at client?
So I would say, yeah, I see that is a very good question. And I'm going to go back to kind of what I was referring to before. Ideally, yes. Ideally, we want the most recent condition. But at the end of the day, what matters for medical is that they are representative of what they are telling us. So if they've said they generally work 30 hours a week, then we would want verification showing that their average is 30 hours a week to justify what they're telling us. So there's really no policy time frame or limit on how old they can be right now, but you know, ideally as early as recent as possible, but we can accept some that are, you know, maybe not the last paycheck or two.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. And Becky, that might be a great opportunity to do a written statement as well. So say if, you know, you submit an application for someone or help to report a change and it pens for more income information, you might want to help the client with that written statement to say why they're using either an older pay stub or why they might be omitting one, just for us to know kind of what was that conversation, how are you helping that client, and what was the conversation that you guys had and why you came to that conclusion for the application. Does that help? Okay. And all right. Yay. Okay, wonderful. And again, we'll keep having this conversation, guys. Please bring questions you have to your ROC. My ROCs may hate me for that, but again, this is why we're here to help you. We recognize that it's complex. It is not an easy topic, and that's why we'll continue to have more conversations about it. Where, again, our hope for this next one is to focus on self-employment and deductions as well, because those oftentimes go hand in hand with employer expenses. And then hopefully in the future, we'll continue to do more specific examples and trainings, hopefully based on some of the questions you guys have brought to us today, as well as other things that I know ROCs have brought to us and really great questions that you guys have brought to your ROCs as well. Okay, guys. I know it's almost noon. We'll do a follow-up with anything that we weren't able to answer today. I know we went through things pretty quickly, so if you have follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I will send a follow-up to the folks that attended the training today with the slides and documents that we went over. And please, if you haven't already, add our trainings to your calendars. Keep attending, keep engaged. I was so happy to see close to 200 people here today. That was fantastic. And other than that, I'll go ahead and let folks go. I will stay on if there are any residual questions that pop up for income, but feel free to if you'd like to start dropping off. I'll stay on for just a few minutes, probably stop the recording, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much for attending this income part 1 of probably part many, and appreciate all you guys' wonderful questions and everything that you do for community. Keep engaged and keep connected with us, okay? And we will check in again soon. And I got to show our beautiful thank you image as well. So thank you guys. And Rosie, would you mind pausing the recording?
Yes, and thank you, Sean, for the great session that you provided today.
Well, thank you for your help, and thank you for policy team for being here. I'm sure you were answering a lot of questions on the back end. Thank you so much for all of your help in helping us create the training today. So a great team effort.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful lunch. And hope to see you on reporting income part 2, April 26th.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.